What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Scout and Combine. Today, we're going to be talking about the three biggest Week 2 college football games, and we'll be previewing them, the prospects, giving betting lines and predictions, and talking about, of course, hashtag Hussam's Hot Shots. Let's go ahead and get the show started. Today, I'm bringing on a good friend of mine, Tyler Forness. Forno, how you doing today, my guy?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Excited for Week 2?
Oh, it's always a good day when college football is on my TV. And let me tell you that I'm most excited for the late night slate. Like, you've got Arizona, Mississippi State, Oregon State, Fresno State, Baylor, BYU. What a late night slate to fall asleep to, man.
And I mean, I wish we were talking about the Sickos game of the week as well. Iowa State. I'm excited for that game, but we'll leave that to the Sickos committee to go ahead and talk about that. But today we're talking about Bama, Texas A&M. We're talking about Florida and Kentucky. We're talking about Tennessee and Pittsburgh, the three biggest matchups of the day. Before we get into previewing these games, what's Week 2 looking like?
Oh, Week 2 is going to be very interesting because when you take a look at a lot of the spreads, there's a lot of really close games, Hussam. And it was really difficult when I was writing my against the spread column because it was harder to find value than I expected. And there's going to be a lot of really fun matchups. There's a lot of really good quarterback matchups as well, even some underrated ones like when I mentioned BYU Baylor. Blake Shapen versus Jaron Hall is going to be a good quarterback matchup. Like, we're spoiled when it comes to college football, and this week is just exponentially makes that even more so.
Let's go ahead and talk about it again. I mean, the quarterback matchups are absolutely huge. And before we talk about the first game that's coming up at noon, big noon kickoff, Alabama, Texas, and Texas, bring on Texas talk writer Ryan McAloon. Ryan, how are we doing today, my guy?
I'm happy. I'm excited. And I don't know. I'm excited for now. We'll see until after kickoff how long that lasts.
Look, now, Tyler, Alabama is a 20-point favorite. Over-under is 61.5. This is a fully focused Alabama team that lost a slew of star parts in last year's NFL draft. Yet, they still ran for 278 yards last week and threw for 281 yards. Do you see the same type of offensive performance up against these Texas Longhorns?
I wouldn't be shocked to see it. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Nick Saban this offseason called 2021 a rebuilding year, and they were 15 points away from winning a national title. And then you look at this team, it's arguably the most talented team that Nick Saban has had. Their wide receiver core is completely rebuilt with Jermaine Burton and Tyler Harrell, but they're dynamic. You have Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. Bryce Young's coming off a Heisman-winning season, and Will Anderson's probably the best player in college football. Like, this Alabama team is absolutely ridiculous. I love how Texas is built. I love a lot of their potential and their players. The tough part for them is they're getting Alabama in Week 2. They're getting Alabama in Week 7 or 8. I think this could be a much closer matchup. I just don't have the confidence in Texas right now to really want to bet on this game, because it wouldn't shock me if this game was like what we saw with Alabama and Florida last year, which is 31-29, or if this ended up being 55-20. There really isn't any outcome of this game that would be surprising to me because of how much talent Texas has. It's all about the chemistry and putting it all together. Quinn Ewers has all-world talent. He's got an arm that's drawn comparisons to Patrick Mahomes, a perfect rating in the 24/7 Sports composite. But at the same time, he still has to put it together on the field, and that is going to be the challenge. He struggled against Louisiana Monroe, just finding that timing, that gaining chemistry with those receivers. Losing Isaiah Nayor in the offseason to that torn ACL really, really hurt, because I thought he was going to have one of the biggest years in college football. Texas needs some time, but I do think that they're going to be back. There's going to be nothing about this game that shocks me because of how talented Texas is. They just have to put it together.
So, look, Steve Sarkisian and the coaching staff, they've pretty much settled in. There's a healthy Bijan Robinson in the backfield. Quinn Evers, as you mentioned, Tyler, he's at least prospect-wise is as promising as any quarterback in the country. And you're not crazy to hype Xavier Worthy among the best wide receivers in college football either. Now look, Ryan, Texas has the guys to at least hang with Bama at home. But can they get off to a good start? And do you really believe they can make it at least a close game?
You know what? To make it a close game, I feel like Texas needs to do a couple things. And one of those things that needs to go right is Kelvin Banks, our true freshman, 5-star talent, according to all the recruiting sites. He's going to have to play well. He's going to have to be able to handle Dallas Turner or Will Anderson one-on-one, which is a huge ask, but it's not impossible. We saw Rashawn Slater do it with Northwestern against Chase Young a few years ago. And I think Kelvin Banks is that level of talent. He is incredibly good. He was really good last week as well against ULM, but totally new test here against Alabama. So if Kelvin Banks can handle one of those guys, Christian Jones at the right tackle spot might be able to get some help from a tight end like Gunnar Helm with the other elite edge rusher that Alabama has. And if that's the case, Quinn Ewers is just going to have to get the ball out quick, under 3 seconds on every single throw. And that means that guys like Jatavion Sanders at tight end, who had an incredible week 1 as well, he's going to have to get the ball a lot, and they're going to have to get yak after that. Going to have to get yards after the catch. In that same vein, Bijan Robinson is going to be huge in the passing game as well as a check down spot, and he's going to have to make a couple guys miss to keep this Texas offense going. Quinn Ewers didn't really have the deep ball last week. Tyler mentioned that the chemistry just wasn't there. Quinn Ewers was just late on some throws as well. So if he can find that deep ball, I think guys like Casey Kane and Xavier Worthy could break off a couple big games, but we all have to wait and see if Quinn Ewers has the time to do that.
You mentioned about, the Longhorns offensive line. I want to flip the script and talk about, this Bama offensive line. They retooled, they reloaded, and last year was a rebuilding year for them. And this year, they have talent along the offensive line. It's been worked on. It's been tweaked to be better in pass protection, and it allows Bryce Young time to spread it around more. Now, the only thing noteworthy I found from Alabama this week, and it comes from Nick Saban in his press conference, he didn't know about the notorious horns down penalty that existed. There we go. There it is. I know Ryan is not going to. Ryan knows I'm actually a big Oklahoma fan as well, and he absolutely hates that. He hates it. So I don't think any of his guys are actually going to do that. They're well structured, well disciplined. But Tyler, do you think Alabama is going to flinch for an instant when Quinn Ewers connects with Xavier Worthy on a 78-yard touchdown pass?
No, because then Bryce Young's just going to hit Tyler Harrell on the same thing. This could easily be a shootout, just kind of like you alluded to right there. There is a lot of talent on both sides. Texas has always had talent. It's always been about putting it together. And if you look back at the history of Texas football, they may be the most disappointing collegiate program just because of how much talent they've had and how few truly great seasons that they've been able to string together. Outside of Vince Young, and then you had the one Colt McCoy year, they really haven't consistently put anything together. And it's really frustrating because, one, they're in the heart of Texas. Austin is a recruiting hotbed. You just had the top quarterback recruit, Cade Klubnik, go to Clemson out of Austin. They need to figure out how to put it together. And
it's okay, man. They got Archie Manning. They'll be fine. Right, Ryan?
Hey, you know what?
Yeah, Arch and Quinn are a good good gets as well.
Yeah, but you still have to put it together. Brock Berlin is one of the highest rated quarterbacks ever, according to 24/7 Sports. He did borderline nothing. You still have to put it together once you get on the field. And I hope Sarkisian can make it happen, because when Texas is good, college football is better.
Ooh. Now, Ryan, I pass this same question off to you. Different question, but it's probably going to be the same reaction. How will the Longhorns react if Will Anderson Jr. sacks Quinn Ewers twice on the first drive? And what happens when the Crimson Tide stop Bijan Robinson and the run game? What does Texas do then?
It's going to look ugly if that's the case. It's hard to say. That means Texas offense is just not going, because if Quinn Ewers is getting sacked and Bijan Robinson isn't running the ball, what else is there? But you could say that about every offense in America. So if that's the case, I think we're going to see a lot of quick throws to Jatavian Sanders, like I alluded to earlier as well. Maybe Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington too might get involved, but that's not going to beat Alabama. That's not going to cover against Alabama. If that's the case, Texas is getting boat raced by Alabama today. So I think one of those two things needs to not happen. Quinn Ewers can't be getting 10 sacks today, obviously. And then Bijan Robinson just can't get stopped. This offensive line has to do good one way or the other. They got to be decent in pass protection, or they have to be decent in the run game. So if both those things aren't happening, I don't see the overhitting, because I think Alabama is going to take their foot off the brakes. Nick Saban tends to do that, and I don't think Texas is going to score enough to make that over hit, and I don't think Texas would cover either that 20 and a half number that's floating around.
So I have my prediction: Alabama 45, Texas 27. Tyler, what is your prediction?
55-20 Bama. I think, like I said earlier, if this game was week 8, I feel a lot more confident in Texas. I need to see more, but there is literally no outcome in this game except Texas boat racing them by 50 that would shock me. Texas has all the talent.
Agreed.
They just got to put it together. But the one element that most people aren't talking about, only one Alabama assistant has ever beaten Nick Saban. Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart and Jimbo Fisher. 2.
And Jimbo.
They're like
yeah,
2 and 26. 2 and 26. And both wins were last year.
Yeah, Nick Saban's on a cold streak, that means. So
Nick Saban's in the cold streak. So Ryan, what is your game prediction for today?
No, I'm going to be a little realistic here. I think it's going to be a 35-21 game right now. I think Texas keeps it. If Texas keeps it within 2 possessions, I think that's a good day for Texas. You know, they have a lot of recruits on campus today, a lot of big time names. Deuce Robinson, the 5-star tight end, being one of them. If they can keep it within 2 possessions and show these recruits that Texas kind of belongs, at least in the top 25. If it looks like that Notre Dame Ohio State game that we saw last week, I think Texas. I think they're in good shape, but I'm going to stick with that 35-21 number. Alabama winning it, but that would be okay with me. Obviously, we want to win, but one step at a time. Texas is not back yet, but one step at a time.
One step at a time. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll be excited to see a big noon kickoff between the Crimson Tide and the Longhorns. Horns down, baby.
Thank you for having me, Hussam.
Of course, Ryan.
It was great.
Now, Tyler, let's go ahead and bring Uncle Al from Vols ATB within the ATB network. We're going to be talking about the Tennessee Volunteers at the Pittsburgh Panthers. Al, how are we doing today, my guy?
Dude, I'm good. I could be more excited for this game. There's a lot of implications with this one. So honestly, I'm just itching to get to 3:30.
Itching to get to 3:30. Now, Tyler, the line has Tennessee favored by 6.5 points. Over under is 66. Do you agree with both outcomes?
Not really. I think this should be a lot closer to a pick 'em, especially after what we saw from Pitt last week. The biggest issue I have with Tennessee has just been the inconsistency. When they're on, they're borderline unstoppable with that system that Josh Heupel's implemented. But one of the problems is Hendon Hooker loves to stick with his first read. He struggles kind of getting off of that. When the first read's there, it's money. And they have the weapons, they have the talent on the outside to really be able to do some damage. But when you go into Pittsburgh, they're going to have a stout defense. They have a really good defensive line. Keaton Slovis is not very good, but at the same time, he can run within the context of that offense. And that offense is really built for a player like that because it maximizes his limited skill set with his arm talent. I think that this is going to be a relatively close game. I would put it a lot closer to a pick'em, and just because it's in Pittsburgh, I would give Pitt a slight edge. But I think it's going to be a very, very competitive football game.
So look, Al, as Tyler said, this Tennessee offense, when they're good, they're going to go off. And honestly, this offense looked as potent as I've ever seen as a college football fan. He scored 59 points in the season opener, but against Ball State. the talent disparity is a little bit different. But Hendon Hooker, he has a lot of help compared to last season. However, when you talk about this offensive line, the starters are back. That unit allowed an SEC worst 44 sacks last season. And I believe, how effective this Vols offense can be is dependent on the hog mollies up front. What's your take up against this Pittsburgh defensive line?
Well, that's kind of the thing that we've been worried about today is all we hear about is the history of Pat Narduzzi and how effective he is at one, stopping the run game, but always having an effective front seven. But this year, I don't know if we're that worried about it as much as we have been told to be worried about it, because West Virginia went in there and they had a freshman running back get off for 125 yards. So there's the side of that says they are penetrable, that we can get through that, but there's also the longstanding history that it will be a problem for us. And like you mentioned, we did have an SEC worst sacks allowed last season, but that could be a lot of Hooker still trying to just make plays with his legs and extend plays because he's a very mobile quarterback. So again, like you were saying, also we put up 59 against Ball State. That was not really a wash, I want to say, but you can't really take much from that game just because our offense was very bland. We ran like the same 4 plays, just in different formations. But we were still able to put up that many points. So again, I feel like this is our true first game, and we'll see and learn a lot more about our team today.
So look, Tyler, Pittsburgh finished 3rd in the nation in sacks last fall, and their top havoc producers, Kalijah Cansey and Habakkuk Baldonado, are still around to cause problems. If the Panthers defense can create chaos and force 3 and outs, the Vols defense can expect to be on the field for much of the game. Do you think Slovis in that running game will get back up to speed that they have been in spring practice?
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. And it's a tough one because I genuinely think this is going to be a close game because, as we kind of mentioned, the Vols offense is very dynamic. The Pitt offense really isn't. It relies a lot on these receivers to find holes open in the zone and then run after the catch. It's one of the reasons why Jordan Addison was so successful last year. Kenny Pickett hit him within 10 yards, and he took it places. And that's what made him so special. And they're kind of continuing that. You've got Wayne. You've got the transfer from Akron. I cannot
Mumfield, isn't it?
Mumfield,
I think.
Mumfield, there we go. There's some talent on the outside. It's one of the better receiver corps in the nation. They just have to be able to deal with the fact that Slovis stinks. And I say that kind of lovingly just because he's fine, but he's not an NFL prospect. He's
a good college quarterback. Let's leave it at that. He's a good college quarterback.
He's got an al dente penne noodle for an arm. Like, he's fine. But within the context of how that offense runs, he can operate it efficiently, just like Kenny Pickett did last year. And I think it's going to be a really close game. And as you said, that defensive line, I think, is going to be key. If they get pressure on Hooker and they can keep contained, which is going to be a huge thing with how Hooker is able to extend plays and run the football. If they can do that, I think Pitt can come out with the win.
So, look, the Panthers' running game was pretty much held in check, and Slovis had to throw the ball for over 300 yards. Now he gets to throw on a Vols secondary that struggled last season. I mean, Al, they do have experience, Trayvon Flowers and Jalen McCullough, but they were also one of the biggest reasons why the pass defense struggled in 2021. So I think one of the keys to the game is that Slovis, he needs to use his penne noodle arm to throw for 300 and plus more yards if the running game doesn't get up to speed. What have you guys seen from Trayvon Flowers and Jalen McCullough in spring practice, and can it translate up against, a ranked Pittsburgh team?
See, I really do hate to call people out, but Trayvon Flowers and McCullough, I think, are more solid than our other corner at number 4, Warren Burrell. Just because against Ball State started a quarterback who has never completed a touchdown pass in his career, and then he comes into Neyland and throws for almost 270 yards and gets a touchdown. And a lot of those yards came on Warren Burrell because he actually ended up being tied for our leading tackler that game. And I always say that you don't want your corners being the leading tacklers unless that they are playing downfield and they're getting in the backfield. But if they are your leading tacklers, then that probably means the ball's getting thrown at them. And clearly it was successful against him on that side. So I'm not really worried about Flowers or McCullough as much as I am Burrell on that side. And that's why, again, I think that this game is going to be nothing but points because Pitt has a Swiss cheese secondary. and we also have a Swiss cheese secondary. So I think this is going to be day of the quarterbacks, and the ball's going to be flying all over the field.
Well, I mean, if the ball flies all over the field, whether it be, outside the hashes, I mean, the middle of the field is also going to take a point of emphasis. You have linebacker Jeremy Banks. He's going to be looked upon to create a lot of negative plays, along the middle of the field and in the run game. What have you guys seen from Jeremy Banks during spring, and can he continue the success he had last season, Al?
Yeah, I mean, last season, I'm pretty sure he was our leading tackler, and he is kind of the dog of our defense. I think it goes as he goes. A little bit underperformed against Ball State, but we know that the potential's there. He has a history of playing a little bit too rough, getting some penalties after the play where he's just roughing somebody up afterwards. But, I still think he's the leader of our defense. And we've got nice pieces around him. We've got number 24, Aaron Beasley. We've got number 12, Tamarian McDonald, who started the Ball State game with a pick. And then we've also got people on the D-line and Byron Young and Tyler Barron who can also get after the quarterback. So as much as we want to talk about Pitt's defense, we also have a very good front seven. I won't say very good front seven. We've got a very solid defensive line and solid linebackers, but they're also coached by Rodney Gardner, who is one of the best in the business. So we can talk about Pitt's D-line, but we need to talk about ours as well because I think we can get after the quarterback too.
Yeah, a big pickup in Alabama transfer, Byron Young, especially on the defensive line for the Bulls. As we move to the offense, Tyler, Cedric Tillman is getting, a lot of rave for the NFL draft class in 2023. Do you think Tillman can go off in this game?
I think he can go off, and the one thing with Tillman is we really haven't seen him go off, and there's been a lot of hype around him, and I think he can be a really, really good prospect. But I need to see more, and this is a perfect stage for him to really show that he's there, he's arrived, and that it'll be a lot easier to help project him out when he performs well against a high-quality opponent like Pitt.
So, Al, let's go ahead and get into, this prediction of a game. I have Tennessee winning 44-38 in Pittsburgh. What's your prediction today?
So I agree with Tyler. I think this is more of a pick'em than it is that minus 6.5 spread. But I got the Vols winning today, 38-35. Again, I think this is the day of the points. I think the scoreboard's going to be lit up, and the scorekeeper's going to have a lot of work. He's going to have some sore fingers after this one, but it could even be higher. Honestly, I think 38-35 might end up being conservative. But I also like your prediction of 44-38. But I'm gonna stick with 38-35 Tennessee.
38-35 Tennessee. Bulls win in Pittsburgh. Tyler, what's your prediction?
I'm going 41-38 Pitt. I love Pitt's defensive line and the amount of havoc that they can create. They really got after JT Daniels last week. And I need to see more from Tennessee from a consistency standpoint to really trust them because they have all the talent. There's a reason why a lot of people are predicting them to be second in that SEC East behind Georgia. But the inconsistency really scares me, and I've seen more consistency from Pitt no matter who's behind the court or the center. And I'm going to ride with the home team here.
Going to ride with the home team here. Al, thank you so much for coming on. You got to pray the Bulls win tonight, right? Hopefully by big. Let's see if the over hits tonight.
Absolutely. Go Vols. Hey, and like y'all saying before, it's always horns down.
Horns down. Ryan is definitely not gonna love this. Before we go ahead and talk about our final game of the day, I wanted to shout out our sponsor, Prize Picks. Our show today is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest, fastest, and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you up against the numbers. Members play the over-under on anywhere between 2 and 5 players of their choice. You can pick from a wide variety of sports and stat types, and even mix and match different sports in one entry. The more picks you correctly predict, the more money you win. Payouts on Prize Picks can be as high as 10 to 15 times the bet. Head over to prizepicks.com and use the promo code 5. That's FIVE, kind of like the $5 footlong from Subway you used to get as a kid. And again, to get a deposit match up to $100, use the code 5, FIVE. Tyler, as we get to our final, top game of the week, Kentucky at Florida. Kentucky has not won in Gainesville in God knows when. I don't even remember. Maybe I was a kid back then. I'm only.
No, actually, they won I think it was Dan Mullen's first year in 2018. They went in and beat Florida.
2018. Oh, yeah, 2018 Gators.
Outside of that, it was 1975.
Good Lord. Yeah. Okay. I was 19 in 2018. How about that? I don't remember much back then. But 1975 is a long, long time. Florida has, the upside here, especially with quarterback Anthony Richardson. The line is Florida -5 over under 52. How are you feeling on the betting on the lines and bets today?
Well, in my Against the Spread article for Fantasy Points this week, I actually took Florida at -6 because I was going off of the DraftKings sportsbooks. Chris Rodriguez is out for this game again, and they could not run the ball against Miami of Ohio. Now, against Utah, the Utes were able to run the football, but they've got Tavion Thomas, they've got Micah Bernard, and they have a really solid offensive line, and they were doing a lot of play action to keep the linebackers guessing. I don't think we're going to see nearly as much of that. Kavasi Smoke is just not on the caliber of those players. Will Levis is going to have to air it out, and that secondary for Florida is nasty. You've got Tavez Johnson, Jason Marshall Jr., Troy Dean. There's a plethora of guys in the secondary that are really good. They, for the most part, shut down Utah's passing game, but they were able to still win in the seams with both Kincaid and Keithy. Kentucky they have Tavion Robinson, who they got from Virginia Tech, who's kind of taking that Wandale role. But outside of that, I see a lot of struggles for Kentucky moving the football. And they struggled to move the football last year against the Florida Gators, but they capitalized on turnovers, and that's how they ended up winning that game. I think Florida can run away with this. I think it's probably a 2-score win for Florida just because of what Anthony Richardson is, how dynamic their running game has become. They're utilizing a lot of pro-style shot concepts. That Anthony Richardson touchdown run was a classic wide zone deep shot where you have the crosser on the left, and then you have the corner post or the post corner on the right, and you completely clear out the left side. Oh, there's nobody there. Richardson takes off touchdown. They're doing a lot of those kind of things. This is a pro style offense run from the pistol and the spread. And I think that Anthony Richardson, he's got one more game in him. You've got Kentucky coming in. Kentucky arguably is a worse team than Utah, especially on the defensive side of the football. I think that the Gators are going to be just fine, and they are going to win by 10 points.
By 10 points. Wow. I mean, just from the Anthony Richardson aspect alone, he helped to pile on 283 ground yards, 4 touchdowns, and averaged 7 yards up against a very good physical Utah defense. And, they have plenty of talent up front on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. They start multiple 5-star players on the defensive line, but they still surrendered over 200 yards rushing to the Utes offense. Kentucky's top running backs, they're out. Chris Rodriguez is out, another running back out with an injury. But they have to deal with Will Levis and his strong arm, mayo-loving prospect. I absolutely find that disgusting. He puts mayo in his coffee. But you talk about Tavion Robinson, dynamic, speedy playmaker, transferred from Virginia Tech. He was also a Virginia player as well. He's got the feels of Wandale Robinson. Just play action-wise with Will Levis throwing the ball. He was 7 for 13, 148 yards, one touchdown. But can he get this Florida secondary that you just described as really, really good to bite on these play action passes?
I wouldn't worry about the secondary biting on him. It's going to be the linebackers, Ventrell Miller, Amari Burney. If he can get those guys jumping just a little bit, then they could take advantage of some crossing routes. But even with Will Levis's positives, I don't think they have enough weapons on the outside to really contend. And Florida, even though they didn't actually sack Cam Rising a lot, they got after him. Brenton Cox, Gervon Dexter were in his face consistently. And I don't really see that changing here against Kentucky. I think it's going to be a consistent. Tony's winning with 4 rushers, something that Todd Grantham was not able to do. And Florida was absolutely gutted when they blitzed. And teams were able to really take advantage of them. Because Florida's starting to win with 4, that is a massive change from last year. And you're going to see a defensive shift.
And that is scary because Kentucky's big blue wall. They're young, they're inexperienced, and they're a work in progress. They lost Darren Kennard, they lost Luke Fortner, and they only really have one starter returning, along with the Auburn transfer to Sean Manning. Only 45 career starts up against a talented blue chip defensive line. If I'm Will Levis, I'm kind of scared. I want to get the ball out quick. I want to do flats. I want to do screens. I want to do dump offs, anything to get the ball moving early on, because I know my running game is not going to be up to par. On the offensive side for Florida, he might be contained by the Wildcats defense, just running wise, because they have good linebackers. They have a decent enough secondary, and they can contain him just a little bit within the pocket. But he will have to rely on his arm more than his legs. And if he does that, will he be a surefire top 10 prospect in the NFL draft?
I think he will, and I think he's already shown the propensity to be that. One of the big things with Anthony Richardson, there was a clip floating around yesterday where somebody was like, "Oh, he threw 9 of his 17 passes within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage." Like, who cares? Yeah, what people don't realize when they just look at numbers, they don't watch the game. They don't see that, hey, this is the design of the offense, and he is a tremendous decision maker. He's not going to force stupid throws. When he was throwing down the field, the guys were open, and he was hitting them with great accuracy. That ball pops out of his hand like Josh Allen's. It's a special kind of arm strength. I don't think people necessarily realize that just yet, but it's up there in that top echelon. He knows how to make smart decisions. And because of that, you're not going to see him force a lot of stuff. When the game's on the line, he might be willing to do that. But he has all the arm talent. He only has 2 starts. One of them, he was kind of thrown to the wolves against Georgia, which right. I'm so glad it didn't ruin him, because it could have ruined a lot of really talented players. And I think this Kentucky game, he's going to show an even better propensity to throw it down the field and take a few more chances, because he knows what his arm strength can do. And that Utah defense is going to be semi-similar to what you're going to see against Kentucky as far as talent.
So what do you see, let's go ahead and finish this off and predict, the game score. I have Florida winning 27-24 in a close, tight game.
I think it's going to be like 31-21. And I really think Florida is going to control this game. Richardson's going to be too dynamic. That rushing attack, it's the same offense that they ran at Louisiana. Levi Lewis ran it relatively well, but he could not take advantage of a lot of the shot concept plays that they had. And he wasn't good enough to make quick reads and make concise decisions when throwing the football on even shorter routes. So when you have a guy like Richardson who has all that talent and can maximize the offense, you have a stable of backs with Trevor Etienne, the true freshman who ran off a couple big ones. Montrell Johnson, who transferred in with Napier from Louisiana. Naquan Wright, who's the starter, who I absolutely love as a multifaceted back. And you still have 5-star Lorenzo Lingard from the 2019 class. This group of backs is really, really talented. And they run a lot of different types of plays. They run counters, they run zones, they run sweeps. Like, you name it, they run it. It's a very diverse attack. And it's going to be run focused. Take the pressure off Richardson and then let him take advantage of things down the field. I just don't think Kentucky will be able to keep up. They lost too much, and Will Levis, quite frankly, just is not good enough in comparison to really overcome that against this Florida team.
Definitely. They have one of the better running back position groups, a lot of depth as well within the SEC. As we go away from the games, we're going to be talking about some of the top prospects you guys should watch today. I have Drake May. I mean, he could potentially be a Heisman finalist next year. I do believe this kid is going to be that good. He absolutely showed out in last week's game up against App State. Chase Brown from Illinois. And we're going to see Jordan Addison play today against Stanford and Q Blue Kelly. Supposed to have Q Blue Kelly up there as well. I'm not sure what happened, but a Q Blue Kelly and Jordan Addison matchup is going to be one to watch at 7:30 Eastern today. Peter Skoronski, A lot of people are calling him OT1, the first offensive tackle, maybe taken off from the board next year. What have you seen from Skoronski last season and this season, Tyler?
Here's the thing with Skoronski. He is not a super athlete. He's not the most gifted player in the world, but he's got incredible core strength and great technique, which helps him win. I don't necessarily think he's going to have the highest ceiling in this class, but he's going to have the the highest floor. This guy is just a solid, stalwart player. I don't think he's going to end up as OT1. He may end up being a better guard at the next level just because of his skill set. I think he's probably going to end up being a first-round pick if he stays healthy and doesn't test abysmally at the combine. But I do think that you're going to see a couple tackles eclipse him just because of insane traits and athleticism.
And next we have Siakia Ika, big man from Baylor who plays up against BYU today. What have you seen from Siaki and what do you like about him?
Oh, man. This guy can flat out move. He is a wrecking ball in the middle. And when you remember watching Vince Wilfork and how he weighed like 370 pounds, but he could still run. Like, he kind of gives me those kind of vibes where it doesn't matter the size. He's going to get after you and he's going to catch you in the backfield. I love what he brings to that Baylor team, and I think he's going to be really successful in the National Football League.
You know, the next one is Jared Versi from Florida State. Doesn't actually play this week. He plays Friday, September 16th. Absolutely loved what he did up against LSU. Is one of the players that helped Florida State. Let's just go ahead and let's look at the battle Jared Versi did it up against LSU. 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 block field goal, and potentially the game-winning sack up against LSU last year as well. It seems to me that Florida State just reloads every single year in pass rushers.
They do. They're able to find guys in the transfer portal, and I really hope Norvell can turn it around for them because that Florida State team has really not been great since Jameis Winston left. And they have a lot of talent. They have players continuously go to the National Football League. And Versi was a great add from Albany in the FCS ranks. The guy was one of Bruce Feldman's top freaks on his freaks list. The guy is an athletic machine, and he's been able to prove it over the course of the first 2 games of Florida State, including against a pretty good LSU team.
As we move on, it's still staying up on the defensive line and edge rushers. We didn't really get to talk about John Morgan III a lot in the Pittsburgh, Tennessee preview. Pittsburgh has a plethora of pass rushers and good defensive line as well. That's another name to watch up against the Tennessee Volunteers as well. We have Nick Herbig from Wisconsin. The Badgers, man, every single year. I think they may be linebacker you. Okay, I really think they may be linebacker you. You have Vince Beagle, you have Andrew Van Ginkel. Nick Herbig, could he be the next great Badger linebacker?
Yeah, I think he could. I don't know if he's going to get to the same heights as those guys or even what Leo Chenal, because Chenal was like the oddball. He tested athletically superior. And these linebackers from Wisconsin, they're guys you want on first and second down, but you're taking them off on third down. And I think Herbig's going to end up being one of those guys. Very talented player, and just he's going to be a stalwart technically. And for Wisconsin, that's perfect.
That is perfect. And, Texas running back, Bijan Robinson, can he show out and perform up against a star-studded Alabama defensive line and Alabama defense? That is going to be one to watch for in about 15 minutes or so. Tyler, before we end the show off, what's next for you, my guy?
Oh, there's a lot going on for me. A lot of Viking stuff at the Vikings Wire. Being that I'm now the managing editor, we get the Vikings play the rival Green Bay Packers in the debut of head coach Kevin O'Connell. It's going to be a really fun game. I think the Vikings should be slight favorites, but they're slight underdogs at home, which I really don't understand why the odds makers have it that way, especially with all the injuries the Packers have and Devontae Adams being gone. And the Vikings pretty much return all their top guys, including adding Zadarius Smith from the Green Bay Packers as a pass rusher. I've got a weekly Against the Spread article and a new podcast for Fantasy Points where I just sit down and I talk college football for about a half hour. It's a fun time.
It's a fun time.
Yeah, I've got a lot going on. Life is crazy busy for me, but it's football season, baby. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Of course, before we guys let you go here on the Scouting Combine, make sure you guys check out Six Ring Canes as they talk about Miami Hurricanes up against Southern Miss as well. They play at noon today as well. Make sure you guys check out, watch them, give the show thumbs up, like, and subscribe to get the views up, and donate to our channel to keep our channel up. Tomorrow, Dolphins, Patriots. We will be live pre and post game. Fifth Yard will be on. The Extra Yard will also be on. You'll have Dono, you'll have Lewis, you'll have me, you'll have everybody on, and we will have reporters at the game reporting live. Football is back. NFL is back. Make sure you guys stick with us here at the Five Reasons Sports Network. This is the Scouting Combine with Hussam Patel. Fins up, everybody.